What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlegamia here, back with another video. 2K22 is finally here, and just like you gamers want to know, is it worth playing, and more importantly, is it worth buying? Join us now as Wrestlegamia reviews 2K22. Now first off, let's get one thing straight. I played the PC version on max settings, so my graphics and fidelity were on par with the PS5 and Xbox One editions. Unfortunately, we did not play on older generation consoles. There were a few issues the first day of play, as the servers were constantly showing that they were offline and the terms and conditions policy kept restarting. This meant that I had to accept the terms and conditions every time I went in. But thankfully it was resolved on the first day, and I didn't run into many bugs and glitches apart from the odd crash. But nothing unusual for a new release. This presumably had all been patched up. But let's start off with the gameplay. I dove right into the game and wow, what an experience. Definitely a better experience than WWE 2K20. My first match was Edge vs AJ Styles, and it was obvious I was in for a treat. The gameplay was so fluid and there were no notable issues. I set the game on normal, but it didn't mean the AI took it easy on me. Put up a decent fight and performed a variety of moves on me, keeping things from becoming repetitive. Those rumors of the gameplay being streamlined are true. There are some big revamps however, including the block button, combos, combo breakers, and even a dodge mechanic. These are easier to master, and players no longer have to deal with button mashing their way through chain moves or submissions. But that doesn't mean the controls or gameplay have been dumbed down. The control system takes a little time to get used to, but once you get the hang of it, it gets easier throughout, unlike past 2K games whose displays often resemble the controls for jet airliners. I would recommend playing the tutorial at the start of the game, especially if you're used to past 2K games. The tutorial's instructions and objectives made the game easier to grasp, and even my wife had a go at it, and she did alright. Let's be fair, she's not a gamer, but she managed to learn rather quickly, putting in a valiant, if not futile effort. Well, mainly it just came down to kick some punches, but whatever. Now the game has lots to offer, including backstage brawls, which are reminiscent of Here Comes the Pain's various levels, arguably the most ever for any 2K wrestling game. Like there's even platforms to throw your opponent off from. Now there is a slight disadvantage. I do like the combo system to a certain degree, but I felt that sometimes it can lead to button mashing, as breakers can let you break out of a move if you choose the same button as the opponent. This is preferable to past incarnations, and it may be that I just haven't had enough time to master the controls. Maybe others did better, or they just prefer this. As for matches, there are plenty of matches to keep you entertained, including specialty sections such as Cage, TLC, Hell in a Cell, Last Man Standing, Backstage Brawl, Elimination Chamber, Royal Rumble, and many others. But unfortunately we still don't get any Inferno matches or War Games matches, which is a bit of a shame, as this could have been 2K's chance to really push the boat out. In all honesty, I don't want the return of bra and panties matches, but they could have done something new, you know? Perhaps for 2K23. Onto the graphics. The game's graphics are top notch, regardless of whether you play them on last gen or next gen systems. The graphics are better for their current gen players, but not as much as you might expect, which may annoy people with current gen systems. The game's developers have worked hard to focus on both the big things and the small things such as blood. The blood is chillingly real, quite the departure from past years where wrestlers were supposedly busted open with a nary trickle to be seen, where it just looked like ketchup had just been blasted in their face. Now, even though the graphics are top notch and there's loads of textures in the game, load times naturally are faster for current gen systems. We're also applauding the hair system, as now we don't have to see a stiff Bianca Belair ponytail. Next up is sound. Now, outstanding sound can enhance the gaming experience, and 2K22 has plenty of sweet sounds. The crowd noise and chants are great, as is the announcing. The AI calling for matches continues to improve with every new game, which means there are less random calls or just plain bizarre ones. We just love that commentators are also commenting during entrances, and for specific ones as well, including Roman Reigns accompanied with Paul Heyman. Now, your announcers are Michael Cole, Corey Graves, and Byron Saxton, but unfortunately no NXT announcers or Pat McAfee. Goodness gracious, we'd love Pat McAfee in the game. Please make him a commentator in 2K23. Now, the game boasts an eclectic mix of artists such as Motorhead, Machine Gun Kelly, Wu-Tang Clan, and Bad Bunny. There are currently only 12 tracks, so the looping music may aggravate some players. But what about the roster? Now, 2K22 has a deep roster, and thankfully it includes many of the superstars who were released during the game's development. These include Braun Strowman, Peyton Royce, Jeff Hardy, Keith Lee, and Kyle O'Reilly. The game also features a number of legends including Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Jake Roberts, Kane, and Randy Savage, with more to be released on DLC. In fact, the DLC looks pretty impressive. We're even getting the return of Mumaga. This is probably the best DLC I've ever seen, even if it does include Logan Paul. But perhaps best of all, this year's game may be the best when it comes to capturing wrestlers' movesets. The only disadvantage was that gamers won't like omissions like Bray Wyatt, Adam Cole, Daniel Bryan and The Big Show, and they may question the omissions of current stars such as Omos and Zelina Vega. However, these and other superstars should be available in games DLCs coming up. But also the case can be made that they shouldn't have to pay for DLC to get current wrestlers like Omos. Another downside is the often inexplicable ratings given to superstars. They rate Roman Reigns at 95, not surprising considering the monster push he's receiving as Universal Champion. However, former champions like Naomi are getting abysmal ratings. It just doesn't seem to be fair. Next up is Creator Wrestler. Now, the Creator Wrestler, aka Core Mode, is strong and 2K22 allows you to use cores from other platforms. Gamers have seen great creator wrestlers and it makes for fun gameplay when you can play wrestlers from other promotions or former WWE superstars who aren't even included in the game. Now, fun feature is how you can use cores from other platformers, aka if you're using a PS5 you can still download from an Xbox server or even a PC one. You get 100 points so they won't be weak, and custom renders also ensure that your wrestlers won't look like trash on the menu screen. Although that could backfire with all the memes that people are placing on. The disadvantage, unfortunately you can't create entrances and you're limited to 100 slots for cores, a number which might seem large until you really start to enhance your roster. I mean, we're in the current gen of PS5 and Xbox Series X, you're telling me we can only still have 100? It's just not good enough. What about Showcase Mode? Well, this year's Showcase Mode is Rey Mysterio, which is perfect as we are a huge fan of the Master of the 619. You get to play some key rivalries in Rey's career, and like past showcases, there are plenty of objectives in each rivalry that allow you to unlock content such as different versions of him, arenas and many more. Now my only hope is that next year it features The Undertaker. If it does, that's an instant buy for me. The case could also be made that there are some missing big rivalries, including Rey's first pay-per-view match against Kurt Angle. Now we get these omissions have to happen, but still it doesn't seem as complete. But now we're moving on to the big one, the My Rise mode. My Rise, the revised My Career mode, allows you to start off as a male or female wrestler with big dreams of becoming a superstar. Unlike 2K20, the male and female players have their own path rather than one that is intertwined. First off, let's set off with the advantages. My Rise is fun in that it allows you to pick aspiring wrestlers with various backgrounds. For example, you can play as an ex-movie star or a former sports athlete. This adds some great layers to your character and provides different choices for creating your wrestler. While some of the options are incredibly goofy, like having your wrestler look like Smoke from the Mortal Kombat series or an ex-chef, okay, that's kinda cool, it's clear that there was a lot of thought going into this one. You pick a wrestler's type, such as a high flyer or striker, each which has its own advantages. You then start off with attribute points, which allows you to customize your wrestler. You earn more points by completing matches and challenges throughout the game mode, and along the way you'll meet various superstars and have the chance to unlock things like arenas and additional customizables for creating a wrestler. The storylines aren't fixed in that your choices will affect future options, including whether you want to be a heel or face, or whether you want to jump right into the main roster from the Performance Center. Your opportunities to unlock content will depend on your choices, so don't be rash. The fantasy wrestlers here look much better than past versions, as we've really come a long way from Baron Blade. The only problem is that you're extremely limited when you start the game. Of course nothing is unlocked, but that's the point of this mode I guess. You can't unlock wrestlers in this mode such as the NXT version of Shawn Michaels unfortunately. The storyline for different wrestlers isn't exactly inspired, but the mode is fun. Also, the turn-based interactions are really weird. Why can't we just walk around and interact like other previous games? It is a small thing, but things can be improved on in 2K23. Or what about My GM? Yeah, My GM mode is back, and while it's not better than ever, it makes things better for gamers who missed the chance to create their own rosters and book shows. My GM is a gamer strategy that requires players to choose wisely, with everything ranging from your general manager, as each GM gets certain bonuses, your roster, who wrestles whom, and even cosmetics like arena and special effects. The draft is a good place to start, but you need to pick right, especially since your funds are extremely limited. Unlike the WWE and AEW, you don't have a blank checkbook to build your roster, which means you only have a few superstars to work with. While you could definitely sign Brock Lesnar, you're gonna only have about 8 superstars on your roster. You can sign free agents, which are virtually jobbers, but the also good thing is that legends can be signed, but they really don't come cheap. The good news is that you can turn jobbers into true talent, but it takes a lot of time. GM mode also requires you to be prudent about who wrestles whom. Logistics are crucial, but that's to be expected. Paying for better arenas and better production values have tangible benefits. Now those are the positives, but what about the negatives? There's one oddity is that the WWE's formula for maximizing a match's chemistry. For example, if you want a high rating, you have to pit a giant versus a cruiserweight or a bruiser versus a heavyweight. This means you could have a 30-minute Mac Classic with blood and high-flying moves, but only get 2 stars. Meanwhile, Ivar versus the Brian Kendrick gets 5-star ratings. Another huge problem is the limitation of matches, as you only get a handful of them. You can only do 1-on-1 or 2v2, no triple threat, no fatal 4-way, no Royal Rumbles or anything like that. Now, even though you can also have a custom GM, such as even having Paul Heyman as the GM, which is really awesome, you can't have your own promotion in the game. We just wish that there was just that little something that just made GM mode insanely more replayable. Though that doesn't mean it's not replayable, it is. There are loads of objectives and whatnot, but I would just love to add something like AEW into the mix. That would be awesome. Now, this is a great place to start with, but we think that things could be perfected in 2K23. And lastly, My Faction. Now, My Faction is a nice addition, but could we have something else in its place? My Faction is a collectible card game much like you see in sports games where you build an all-star team. This mode features microtransactions, and despite what you may have read, it's extremely difficult to get far without microtransactions. A big negative. So, winner or loser? The WWE 2K22 is an excellent wrestling simulator that over-delivers. The game is light years ahead of 2K20, but more importantly, it's one of the best wrestling games in the last decade. 2K clearly took things seriously when it came back to rebuilding the game, keeping elements that worked in past incarnations and bringing back the fan favorite GM mode, even if it is limited. 2K22 can be challenging, but I had an absolute blast playing it, and it seems to fall into the cliche of easy to learn, hard to master. Whilst there's definitely room for improvements in 2K23, if the WWE actually gives Take-Two an extension on their contract, otherwise EA might pick it up, wrestling fans and fighting fans have lots to love. Our verdict? It's certainly worth the price, but we did run into a few bugs and glitches along the way. By no means nothing as bad as 2K20, but we still found them. They can be easily patched, so it's definitely worth getting at this point. But there you have it guys, our full review of 2K22. Have you guys played the game? What are your thoughts? If so, do you plan on buying it now? Let us know in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling video game content.